everyone. And today we are doing lesson 31 of the geography course. And it's really a lesson on culture. Okay, so political geography, we have seen several aspects of political geography. And culture is an actually very important part of the political geography of different countries and places. And in this lesson, we are going to focus on the aspects of culture that are preserved through literature. Okay, so that is kind of going to be our focus. There are many different ways on how culture is expressed and preserved. We are going to touch on those, and then we are going to see how literature actually helps with that tremendously. So the first question that I have for you is, what is culture? How would you define what culture is? You can answer on the microphone or on the chat, okay? However you want to do it. What is culture? Mm-hmm. How people live, the things that how they interact with one another. Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Okay. Anybody else? Another idea? How would we define culture? What are the different things and aspects of that make up the culture of a country or a place or a group of people? Haley says language, food. Mm-hmm. Okay. Spencer says, I guess it's just like the daily lifestyle of a person. Mm-hmm. Okay. Holidays, the type of holidays that people have together. Mm-hmm. Good, good, Emma. Okay. How else? What other things that make up our culture? Religion. Yes, religion is a very important part of the shared culture of groups of people. Mm-hmm. So culture is customs, music, and dance. Excellent. Yes. Government. Yes, the form of government and the type of laws and uh, how we interact with the government and so on is also very much part of the culture of a group of people. The habits. Mm-hmm. Like what? What type of habits would be part of culture? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you think that the French would say that they are rude to foreigners? What do you think that they would think? Probably they don't. Yeah, go ahead. That's right. Yeah. So they treat people the way that they treat people, and they think that that is how they should. Okay, and it's not in a rude way or rude fashion. It's just that comparatively with how we do it, it's very different. Okay. Yeah. So it is really interesting this issue of culture. So there are several ways on how culture is defined in this Wikipedia article. There's one author that defines culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom or habits, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of a society. Okay, so it's really quite encompassing and lots of different aspects of culture, and we have that language, okay, kinship, how people interact in gender and marriage, the expressive forms such as music, dance, ritual, religion, the technologies that people use, okay, the cooking, shelter, clothing, all right. So all those things could be part of how the culture is organized, okay. And it is interesting that here it also mentions the social, okay, organization and the political organization, okay, the social institutions and organization. That is also part of the culture of a place, okay. Mythology, philosophy, literature, both written and oral, okay, and that all make up the intangible cultural heritage of a society. It's really interesting, all the different parts and aspects of a culture. I remember when I came here to the States, okay, I was about 21, 22 years old, and I already knew the language pretty well, okay? I had a strong accent, like I still have, but I was able to communicate and understand people talking. But I remember one time I was fairly new here in the States, and I was with a group of people, of friends, Americans, and they were talking about work. They were talking about where they work and what they did and where they went and everything. And it was interesting that even though I knew the language and they were understanding each other well, I was completely lost in what they said because they started saying, "Oh yes, I work in IHC, and I like what is it, KFC, okay?" And they started talking on all these acronyms of things that they did, places they went, and everything. And I swear that almost every sentence contained, instead of having the noun, okay, it was an acronym to that they understood perfectly well. But I had no idea what they were talking about, okay? No idea whatsoever what they were saying, all right? That I realized, that is a very important aspect of culture, okay? In another time, I remember when I was in my mission, we were at a preparation day with the missionaries of the zone, and all the American missionaries started talking about a movie. I could understand that they were talking about a movie. Um, and I was trying, because I always wanted to learn more English and everything, I tried to be part of the conversation, okay? But all of a sudden, these American missionaries started talking very, very weird and saying things that I had no idea what they were talking about, okay? And they were saying things like, that is just the injustice inherent in the system. And what type of swallow do you want? The European swallow or the English swallow? And making all sorts of quotes and things and everything. What I didn't know is that they were quoting from the English comedy, okay, of what is it called? The Holy Grail, okay? And I had never seen the movie. I had no idea what they were talking about, and they were completely understanding each other because they share that common cultural background of that movie. Okay, and so Annika says, I love that movie. Yes, and so they were talking about this rabbit and oh, it's only a flesh wound, and doing all these things and everything, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So can you imagine being there in the middle of that conversation? Okay, so uh, Annika says 3-letter acronyms are super confusing, but they are so much a part of my life. I am actually a OSH at the moment. What is an OSH, Annika? What is an OSH? I have no idea what that acronym is. American English, it is very much accepting of lots of acronyms. I don't know if British English uses so many acronyms. Uh-huh. Yeah, it is Greek to you until you hear the meaning behind it. Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't understand anything about the movie or the acronyms, and so over the years, as you learn more and more about the culture of a place, you are able to keep understanding the things that they are talking about. Okay. Mhm. So Anika says an OSH is an overseas seasonal hire. Excellent. Okay. So as you work in the embassy seasonally, probably just during the summer or something like that, then you are an OSH. Who would know? Excellent. Well, in the lesson on the family school, it talks about a specific aspect of how culture is preserved and enhanced, and it is through the works of literature. Okay, and I'm actually a great believer of that. I really think that literature, great books, are a very important way and have been kind of the main vehicle by which culture has been preserved through the generations. Okay, and different countries have very important books that help define and make up their culture. Okay, we are going to explore some of those. So Sabrina says, I love books and reading. Excellent. So I hope that you are going to enjoy this class and what we are going to talk about. So what I want you to think about as we go in this lesson is I put here in the lesson an assignment, okay, lesson 31. Edward says, me too, so he also loves books. So the assignment, I haven't yet kind of decided what should be the optional activity, probably just reading the book. But the required assignment that I want you to do, I invite you to do, is to find what is the national book or books of the country that you are studying. Okay, so you are studying in one of the European countries. I want you to find out what is the national book, the main book or the books that kind of shape and have shaped and define the culture of that country. And if possible, read one of these books or at least learn about it. Okay, some of these books may be really long, and so you won't have an opportunity now just within a week to read it. But I want you to find which is the national book or books of that country and learn about it, and then write a 2-page essay explaining the main plot of the book, who are the main characters, and how each one of these characters affects the culture of the country. Okay, so let me give you an example of something like that. Um, how about if I say something like, you know, um, what does it mean if I say something like, your nose is growing? What does it mean if I say, your nose is growing? Sabrina says, Haley says, lying. Why? You are lying, right? It's because of Pinocchio. Yes, okay. Emma says, I thought of Pinocchio. That's absolutely correct. Okay, so if you are saying, yeah, so you are referring to Pinocchio. Pinocchio is one of these national books, okay? It's one of the national books of Italy. And in Italy, in the culture, in the Italian culture, there's lots of references when people talk about things that actually refer to this book of Pinocchio. The actual book, the original, is called The Adventures of Pinocchio. It was written by Carlo Collodi in 1883. So this was when it was first published, all right? And what happens is that the story of Pinocchio, the puppet that changes into a boy, has a lot of characters, like Geppetto and the cat and the fox, and all the different characters that actually help to define the culture. All right. So Emma says, so would national books be books that were written by citizens of the country? Normally they are, okay? Normally these national books are written by people of that country because they actually define so much of the country, okay? So Annika says, I know the national book for my country. We actually have it. What is it? Which country is it and which is the book? Annika, please tell us. Now we are all we are all in expectation of that. Okay. So here I found online a PDF version of Pinocchio, a translated copy of the original Pinocchio. Okay, so it is called the Kanin Kalevala. Okay, is that from Ukraine, Annika? Is that one of the national books of Ukraine? Okay, have you read it or you know about it? Oh, it is from Sweden. Okay, excellent. So you are doing Sweden. I didn't know which one where you were doing, but excellent. So, so now what I want you to do in the assignment is to understand, okay, this book, read it and everything, and that is going to help you see uh, how it affects the Swedish culture, okay? Or rather the Kalevala. The Kanin one is the kid version with pictures. Oh, okay, so Kalevala is the full, all right, excellent. Sabrina says, I think that for the United States, it's the Bible. Our government is based off of it, although in this day and age it could potentially be Twilight. Yes, I actually agree with you. I think that at least during the foundation era, at many points in our culture, the Bible was our national book. All right. So when people were, you know, even giving common references to the Bible, everyone would understand them. Okay, so if someone would say, "The Lord is my shepherd," okay, in American culture, traditionally, almost everyone would be able to understand and see what that meant and almost recite the full psalm, okay? And the whole image and the whole culture of what that brought. Or expressions like, this person is a good Samaritan, okay? What would that mean when you say that? All right. So those are the aspects of culture, of national culture, that actually help define the culture. And so I learned, for example, that in Italian culture, Pinocchio is one of these national books. Okay, and a lot of people are able to understand and share things through the characters and the plot of Pinocchio. Another national book for Italy is Dante's The Divine Comedy. The Divine Comedy is a book written by Dante Alighieri, and it is an amazing story of a travel, basically, of Dante through hell, purgatory, and heaven, and describing what he sees in them. The Divine Comedy is so influential to the culture of Italy that a big part of the doctrine of the Catholic Church about the afterlife is actually based on the book. Okay, so for a lot of Italian Catholics, it's almost indistinguishable the difference between the culture of the Divine Comedy, the ideas of the Divine Comedy, and the doctrine and their understanding, theological understanding of the afterlife. Okay, so very, very influential book. Mm-hmm. Annika says that one of them could be Little House on the Prairie, but what about Plain Jane? That one is quoted a bunch. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the things that happens with culture, is that culture also changes over time. Okay, so and we need to be able to understand what are our national books, read them, understand them, so we can actually not only understand more of our own culture or the culture of another country, but also be able to preserve that through the ideas that are shared in those books. Okay, so for example, Sabrina mentioned that the Bible would be the national book here for America. All right. Edward says, I've never heard of Plain Jane. I haven't heard of that one either. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but for example, we were saying that the Bible could be the national book here for the United States. But the question that I have, sadly enough, is how many people actually read the Bible nowadays here in America, that actually read it, and actually are able to be conversant on the ideas of the Bible, to pass them culturally. So that is why it is extremely important to actually read these books. Okay, very, very important. Okay. Nowadays, culture is also affected a lot by movies, not only books, but also movies, and there's lots of culture and TV series and so on that affect our culture. Okay, so Sabrina says Star Wars. Yes, okay. If someone says, may the force be with you, all right, do you understand what that means? Okay, and that is just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. Yeah, excellent. Another great example of that. All right. So you see that there are many things that affect our culture, and they shape really the way that we think, the vocabulary, the meaning of the things that we say. And so these pieces of literature, these national books, are extremely important because we need to treasure them and still use them in order to help us preserve and maintain the culture and learn about our culture and other cultures. In Spain, one of the main national books is Don Quixote. Okay, Don Quixote was written by Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra. All right, and it is interesting. Here I have some of the some quotes from Don Quixote, translated into English, and they are really amazing. And it is actually very important to see how much impact this book has had on Spanish culture. It is really, really foundational. Anika says, I have read it. It is hilarious. It is really amazing. So this one says, es natural condición de las mujeres desdeñar a quienes las quiere y amar a quien las aborrece. So it says, it's a natural condition of women to ignore those who love them and to love those who hate them. Okay? This says, there is no book so bad that it does not have something good in it. There were no embraces, because where there is great love, there is often little display of it. Okay? El que lee mucho y anda mucho, ve mucho y sabe mucho. Okay, so this translates, he who reads a lot and walks a lot, sees a lot and knows a lot. Okay, there are so many quotes that are really help you to see these ideas that are very, very interesting. This one I love. Hunger is the best sauce in the world. What does that mean? Hunger is the best sauce in the world. Uh-huh. That's right, yes. Uh-huh. If you are hungry, it makes you appreciate any food that you have. So it makes everything taste excellent. That is good. That is very, very good. So, what man can pretend to know the riddle of a woman's mind? So it is interesting that a lot of these quotes are kind of funny. Okay, they don't necessarily need to be true, but because they become so much part of the culture, they really kind of become truisms. Annika says, when you're on a camp out and you haven't eaten for a while, it makes whatever you are eating taste really good. That's true. I remember many of those very good dinners in campouts. Okay. Emma says, so do you want us to read or try to read in the native language? You know, I think that would be the best. All right. If you know Italian, if you can read Pinocchio in Italian, I think that is always the best. Thomas Jefferson learned several languages for the very purpose, okay, for the very purpose of learning and being able to read these books in the native language. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson read Don Quixote in Spanish, not because there were no translations, but he wanted to be able to read it in the native language. Yeah. So Superman says, yes, I have a food I would usually hate, and I love it on campouts. uh-huh. Sabrina says, men and women are wired differently. We will really never understand how the other sex thinks. That's true. That is very true. So that is what Don Quixote says. Okay. Uh-huh. So very, very beautiful quotes here. Okay. See this one. Until death, it is all life. Until death, it is all life. The wounds received in battle bestow honor. They do not take away. They do not take it away. That is very true. Okay. Another national book of Spain is El Cid. The book is called El Cantar del Mío Cid. Okay, so the song of my Cid. Cid is Lord in Arabic. Okay, and this person, okay, the El Cid was actually named, so it's Don Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar. That was the actual person of El Cid, and he was named El Cid by some of the Moors that were there in Spain. Okay, and it is an unknown author. We don't know who wrote it, and the poem is written in all Spanish. It's actually very difficult to read in all Spanish. I read it in Spanish, in Castilian, in the old Castilian, and it's very, very interesting. But it's very interesting to see how this book, that is one of the first and all, one of the surviving poems of the Spanish literature, was written between 1140 and 1207, so we don't know exactly when it was written or who wrote it. Okay, it affects a lot of the culture of Spain. There's a lot of things that the Spanish people are able to understand of their culture because of El Cid. Okay, their sense of loyalty, their sense of the relationship with king and knights and so on, it all comes from this book. This is also one of the national books of Spain. Okay, I couldn't find. I thought that I had something there, but Les Miserables. Okay, this is probably one of the main national books of France. Have you read this book? You have probably seen the musical, okay, or the movie, but this book is actually amazing. It is really, really beautiful. Spencer says, I love that book. So Edward's kids say, I saw the Broadway musical. So I would like to invite you to actually read the book. Okay, this is one of those books that it is very important to read. Okay, it's very long. There are some parts. There's one part or two parts specifically that are really, really long, and we, in not being French, we don't understand really well. So in one part of the book, Victor Hugo describes the cities of Paris and describes the different neighborhoods, okay, and where the characters are, and the war that is happening at that point and everything. And for us, it's actually very boring and very difficult to follow all those parts. He describes the sewers, okay, of Paris and how Jean Valjean goes through the sewers and where they go and this and that and everything. So imagine that for us, it is very foreign to understand that. But for the French people, that brings to life the city of Paris so much. It helps them to be able to see the city in a different new light, in a different way. Okay, so it is a very, very important book. Okay, so back then they got paid for every word, so they were always very descriptive. I didn't know that that was the one of the reasons, but it could be. Okay, so I would like to read here some quotes. Okay, from the book. They are not only from the book, but also things that Victor Hugo or others have said about this book. Okay, so, and he says this towards the end of the novel, Hugo explains the work's overarching structure. And he says, the book which the reader has before him at this moment is, from one end to the other, in its entirety and details, a progress from evil to good, from injustice to justice, from falsehood to truth, from night to day, from appetite to conscience, from corruption to life, from bestiality to duty, from hell to heaven, from nothingness to God. The starting point, matter, destination, the soul. The Hydra at the beginning, the angel at the end. Wow, that is a beautiful, beautiful description, really, of the purpose of the book. And can you imagine, really, how such a book really brings to life culture? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Annika says sometimes it is really hard to crack a joke in another country when the words don't quite have the same meaning. Mm-hmm. So yes, definitely, humor is one of those parts of culture that are really kind of a refined part of culture. I would say that you are really fluent in another culture, in another language, when you start getting their jokes, when you start getting the humor, okay, of that place. It took me several years, for example, to understand some of the American cultures and jokes. Mm-hmm. Jen says, wow, definitely going to get that book for sure. This, if you have, if you have one book, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put this as the optional activity, and I'm sure you are not going to be able to finish it in, pretty sure, unless you are a very fast reader, to read it in the time that we have left in the class. But this book, Les Miserables, is a very, very important work to read. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So very, very important for you to read. So I'm going to put it as one of the optional assignments. Okay. So Upton Sinclair says that this book is one of the half dozen greatest novels of the world. Okay, and Hugo himself in the preface said the following: so long as there shall exist, by reason of law and custom, a social condemnation which, in the face of civilization, artificially creates hell on earth and complicates a destiny that is divine with human fatality. So long as the three problems of the age, these are the three problems: the degradation of man by poverty, the ruin of women by starvation, and the dwarfing of childhood by physical and spiritual night. So long as these three problems are not solved, so long as in certain regions social asphyxia shall be possible, in other words, and from a yet more extended point of view, so long as ignorance and misery remain on earth, books like this cannot be useless. Wow. So this book is trying to tackle, to show these three problems, and what is the solution to them. So it's really an amazing novel. Okay. Haley says something in French sounds so nice and beautiful, but they are total insults. That's the best part. Yeah. Yeah. So I would like now to share with you another book that I think that I really love. Okay, it's this one here. Oh, you cannot see it on the screen because it has a mirror image. So this is Louis L'Amour, The Education of a Wandering Man. So do you know who is Louis L'Amour? Do you know who is Louis L'Amour? The Education of a Wandering Man. So Louis L'Amour was one of America's best storytellers. Okay, so he wrote hundreds of short novels describing lots of different things, but they were basically a lot of cowboy stories. Okay. So here we have in the chat a conversation about some French insult. Okay, so let's ignore that part. So let's concentrate here on one of my favorite American authors, Louis L'Amour. Okay, and he wrote lots of different books that are amazing, and they are very helpful in helping us understand and preserve American culture, especially Western American culture. Okay, he also wrote several books on distant lands. So some of his novels are in China, some are about trips, sailing trips, and so on. But most of them are cowboy stories. Okay, and he wrote one book, okay, an autobiographical book, really, called The Education of a Wandering Man. Okay, and this is kind of a short autobiography because he wrote it when he was still alive. Okay, but he wrote it about his own life. So Louis L'Amour grew up in the Midwest, and when he was 16 years old, he left his home and started hitchhiking through the country and the world, wandering about and gathering stories, talking to people, and learning from people. And he always loved to have books with him. So many times he didn't have anything to eat but if he had something to read, he was happy. Okay, so these are some of the quotes of in this book. Okay, I really encourage you to read it, and it is fabulous. So one of them, a book is less important for what it says than for what it makes you think. I have read many books by many lights, hoarding their beauty, their wit or wisdom against the dark days when I would have no book, nor a place to read. I have known hunger of the belly kind many times over, but I have known a worse hunger, the need to know and to learn. I wish that each one of you could feel that same way, okay? That the hunger to have the need to know and learn is more powerful than even the hunger of food for food. Okay, so see this quote here. I love this one. It is often said that one has but one life to live, but that is nonsense. For one who reads, there is no limit to the number of lives that he may live. For fiction, biography, and history offer an inexhaustible number of lives in many parts of the world and in all periods of time. Okay. So what type of books do you think are best for us to read to help us uh, live many lives? What type of books are, in Louis L'Amour's estimation, the best books to read? Is anyone there? Classic literature, scripture. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Yeah. See, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, uh-huh. So see, Louis L'Amour says fiction, biography, and history. Okay. Fiction, adventure, all right. And Louis L'Amour says historical novels are, without question, the best way of teaching history, for they offer the human stories behind the events and leave the reader with a desire to know more. Okay. So that is, I love reading histories and historical novels. Sometimes, are fictional historical novels, but others are kind of mixed between the actual facts and everything that help you understand the characters better. Okay, so there's so many good quotes here about education and how we can uh, learn through books. Okay, without books, we should very likely be a still primitive people living in the shadow of traditions that faded with years until only a blur remained. Okay, a parent or a teacher has only his lifetime. A good book can teach forever. Without books, we should very likely be a still primitive people living in the shadows of tradition. Okay, so that repeats there. Mhm. Okay, that is very, very important. really. Okay. So I have some quotes here from the book also that I would like to share. Let me see. Uh, so it was with me. I've saved myself much hardship. Louis L'Amour says, I've saved myself much hardship by learning from the experiences of others, learning what to expect and what to avoid. I have no doubt that my vicarious experience saved me from mistakes I might otherwise have made. Not to say I did not make many along the way. Okay. That is one of the powers of the scriptures. Okay. The scriptures really is to help us see vicariously what are the patterns of human behavior, what are the patterns of lives of how people relate with God. And so we can see through the scriptures, through the examples of the prophets, okay, and the different characters in the scriptures, how to avoid making mistakes. Okay, I love this quote here. It says, "A writer's brain is like a magician's hat. If you are going to get anything out of it, you have to put something in first." Okay. So if you want to be a good writer, in order to be able to take something out of your brain, of your hat, you actually have to first put something in it. Okay. Very, very interesting. I think the greatest gift anyone can give to another is the desire to know, to understand. Life is not for simply watching spectator sports or for taking part in them. It is not for simply living from one working day to the next. Life is for delving, discovering, learning. That's very, very good. So at the end of the book, Louis L'Amour wrote a list of the books that he read, okay, during his wandering time, okay, and he wrote this list and basically put it by year. So books and plays read in 1930, and he has all the list of books that he read during that year. Okay, a couple of pages of books. So this is also a great resource of finding what are good books to read. Okay, beautiful list of books here in this book. Sabrina says, there are two types of people, those who do and those who watch. Yes. So we want to be able to be the ones who do and those who learn, okay, from others. So, yeah. Edward says, hey, I watch and do. Yes. Okay, good. That is still very good. All right. Well, any comments or thoughts about this? What are any comments that you have? We should, Emma says, we should do both technically. Watch for the second coming. Any other comments? Anything else that you would like to add? Any of these other quotes that you would like to read? Annika says, sometimes it is good to watch and learn from others' mistakes that we wouldn't want to miss out on doing either. That's right. That is the power of reading and learning, okay, is, mhm, is that we can learn from others' mistakes. Absolutely. Emma says, so national books are books that influence their culture. Is that right? Yes. That influence their culture and almost are the books that help define big parts of the culture, that actually describe the culture better. Mhm. Okay. So we have a volunteer for closing prayer. Excellent. All right, and it would be Bianca. Mm-hmm. All right. So any other comments or questions? I think that I heard someone on the microphone wanting to say something. Go ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is actually this talk that you are talking about is this one here, Parents, the Prime Gospel Teachers of Their Children by Elder Tad Callister. And this is actually referring to Ben Carson. Ben Carson, he had an amazing life, but literally through what the story that you were telling, his mother saved him, okay, saved him from a life of ignorance. It is really, really amazing what she did. And her mother, Sonia Carson, she was a single mom, very, very young, okay, and she had only a third grade education. She didn't know how to read, okay. Imagine she was married at age 13 and was divorced and had two sons. One of them was Ben Carson. And that is what she did. She took them to the library and asked them that they needed to read and then write a report on two books every week. And she looked at the reports, but she couldn't read them. Okay? She couldn't read them herself. But that is what started them, Ben and her and his brother being able to start learning and growing. Ben Carson became, he is one of the most important neurosurgeons in the world. Okay, so it is really, really amazing what she did. Very beautiful story. Okay, so I would like you, I'm going to put a link here to this talk on the lesson also. Very, very important. Good, good. Mm-hmm. So you remember that story about Sonia Carson. Good, excellent. Okay. Any other comments? Mm-hmm. I still remember the first time my grandmother took me to the public library in Rosario, in the town where I grew up, and she took me to the library, and I saw in the main hall the huge, it was a huge round hall, all the books, all the walls line up with books. It was probably like 3, 4 stories high, uh, all the walls covered with books. And she taught me how to check out books, how to look in the card catalog for books. She made me have a library card, okay, and I kept that library card for many, many years, even after I moved away and everything. But that was a sweet, sweet memory. And I remember still my desire to actually know what was in all those books, what were the stories written in the books. That was one of the things that I'm most grateful to my grandmother. Okay, a sweet, sweet memory. Sabrina says, my first time in the public library, I literally drool. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing all these things and for letting me share the quotes of these fabulous books. And I hope that this inspire you to choose the best books. There are so many good, good, great books there. Don't waste your time in mediocre or irrelevant books, okay? You have so many of the good, good books to choose from. Try those, okay? So, Bianca, would you like to offer the prayer to close the class, please? Okay. Is Bianca still around or someone else? Would you like to offer the class? The prayer, sorry, the class. Go ahead. Yes, uh-huh. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much.